Mark Rondeau's consistency has been impressive. For 9 straight races, he's been on the podium. Meanwhile, Sam Mayorga's speed is looking unmatched down in the Caymans. Will they both keep up the trend here at Road Atlanta? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 3 of the Porsche Owners Club Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director Christian Duploy, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. With so much important sports car history here at Road Atlanta, we might as well find out a little bit more about it with our track guide. Welcome to Road Atlanta, the scene of incredible sports car racing for decades and the home to the Petit Le Mans. This is a track that has proven itself to be worthy of attention on a world stage. With it being situated only an hour northeast of Atlanta, Georgia, the circuit is in a prime location. But despite its flagship race, in contrast to the real Le Mans, the full course is a measly 2.5 miles long. The club layouts also clock in at just under 2 miles. Packed within this small lap length is a series of technical and challenging corners, some of which can be race-ending even when small mistakes are made. Turn 1 is a fast sweeper which compresses the car into the track, but the high speeds mean that when you go off, you typically go off in a big way. Turn 3 is notorious for its curved entry into a blind apex. Too far inside and you face a cut course penalty. Too far outside and you're likely to spin out. Then there's the unassuming Turn 5. The wide curving lures you into getting greedy, but the close walls on either side gobble up cars and spit them out as a crumpled heap. With all the tricky fast turns, that's not to say that there aren't passing opportunities. The main one comes at the chicane at the bottom of the backstretch. The huge downhill drop into the turn makes outbraking yourself quite easy though, so be careful. The whole thing wraps up with the frightening final corner. With nothing but a giant wall right to the outside as cars fly through at high speed, it's not often that wrecks are small. Boasting a wide swath of series over its history, everything from NASCAR to Indy Lights and of course IMSA, the main use of the track is SCCA events and driving schools. No wonder this place is popular both in real life and here on the iRacing service. Fans will no doubt get to enjoy many more years of action at this incredible track. This is definitely a favorite among drivers, and I'd say among fans as well, Joey.
Yeah, definitely a fan favorite as long as you stay away from those fire ants in that red Georgia clay. First opened in 1970, 2.54 miles in length and 12 turns that are pretty high speed when you look at this track as a whole. Turn number 1 is where the elevation starts. It can be a good passing opportunity, but be careful not to go charging in too fast or you can find yourself with a wild ride out there on driver's left. An important corner at the top of the hill, turn number 3. It can be easy to miss your sighting on that apex there, and then you're kind of on the back foot all the way down the S's. Another danger area is the exit of turn number 5. You want to be using all of the exit curbs, but it can upset the platform there on the car and send you for a ride as well. Circle turn number 7. I think it's the most important corner on this entire racetrack as it leads you out onto that incredibly long back straightaway. Your best passing opportunity is definitely making a lunge on the brakes going into what is turn 10A and 10B. Just be careful. An over-under is very, very possible if you don't judge that braking zone right, which can make an exciting run to the line.
Absolutely. Or if it's not the last lap, an exciting battle down into turn 1 to see who's brave. But we'll see whether or not we get any of that action in a moment. First, we want to mention our sponsors, which include Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Top Gun MG, helping financial advisors be the best of the best. Contact them today at TopGunMG.com. That's TopGunMG.com. Now, we've got some points on the board for this season. And our first class, the GT1s, which is those GTE cars, sees Mark Rondeau currently leading the way, as I mentioned. But he hasn't taken a win yet. Still, he's got a second and a third to his name. So watch out for him as Johnson trails him in the points right now, with Andrew Tanichi coming in after missing the first round, sits in third. Meanwhile, down in the GT4s, that one's pretty simple. Mayorga's won both, so he leads over Del Toro, who sits in second after having 2 second places. Real quick, though, Joey, why don't you give us a little bit of a heads up on what this race will entail?
Yeah, well, the drivers are out there in qualifying right now for round 3 of 13. Still early times here in the season. I mentioned qualifying going on right now. The race itself is going to be 45 minutes long. It's going to be the Porsche GTEs and the Porsche GT4s. That is the RSR 911 chassis as well as that Cayman GT4 chassis. So it is a multi-class race. You're going to have to deal with traffic out there at least at some point. There are a pair of fast repairs, so if you get into any issues, especially early on, you can go ahead, hit that reset button, or at least get it back down to pit lane. It'll pop you in a brand new car, and back off onto the racetrack you go.
Might be useful around here because, like you said, turn 5 tends to really capture a lot of cars as it is tough and it is scary. But I've been talking a lot about Mayorga and his dominance. Well, he's actually switched classes. He's gone from the GT4 cars up to our GTE cars. And, well, he's basically picking up where he left off. He's our current provisional pole sitter in that faster class, trying to be chased down by Chad Duncan and Matt Steele. And that's left a bit of an open goal for Federico Del Toro, who is currently the quickest down in the GT4s.
Yeah, he currently leads that class with, let's see here, a 125.525. A nice healthy margin, about 3/4 of a second over Daniel in that number 19 car as we watch Chad Duncan. This is the other chassis. This is that 911 RSR, the GTE themed car. Chad Duncan is rocking his way down the straightaway. Right now, he's actually second on the board, just over 1/4 of a second outside of that provisional time by Sam Mayorga.
Somebody off the track there coming through the chicane. They'll get it turned around and going once again, but Chad will cross the line. Let's see if this is an improvement for him. Unfortunately, no. So on he goes with quite a few more laps if he wants them. You can circulate around this place pretty quickly. So they've got some time here with, I'm seeing, oh, excuse me. Did they, it looks like actually qualifying is just about over. So this is a little bit earlier than we anticipated. And then they'll be heading off to the race. So never mind what I just said. This is pretty much it for Chad Duncan to try and get a lap in.
Well, don't worry, Joe. I'll cover for you. Chad has already done 20 laps already in this qualifying session as we watch John Momeyer here cross the line in the GT4 cars. He's actually going to put a lap time on the board of 129.439. It does put him 7th in that GT4 class. Now, with the open style of qualifying, all the cars are on the track. Yes, the checkered flag has come out, but as long as you've already started that qualifying lap, you are able to finish it. You just can't cross under the line with the checkered flag out and then start a new lap.
Exactly. And Duncan is heading across towards the end of that lap as we watch BJ Fulton behind him as well, both on that final flyer. Chad unable to improve, Fulton to cross the line. And no, same deal, just about a 10th off of his quickest lap. He'll stay 4th at best. Rob Russell here in GT4 car, sitting 4th in that class, has about half a second if he wants to be in the top 3 with Adam Abrams, the car in front of him.
That corner that he just exited there, turn number 7 at Road Atlanta, I really do feel that it is the most important corner as it leads you out onto this incredibly long straightaway. I see about 140 miles an hour. Should be getting up a little bit faster here in these GT4 cars. Now he's hard on the brakes into that, what is the best passing opportunity here at Road Atlanta. Put your foot to the floor, bounce up and over those curbs, but careful not to cut the apex too much. Barney can penalize you, and you don't want those incident points here in qualifying. Let's see what the lap time is going to be. 126.77. He does improve his lap time, but not his position.
Bit of a shame. Still glad to know that he was finding some pace all the way to the end. Adam Abrams does not improve in front of him, and doesn't matter because he stays put where he is since Rob was not able to go above him on the timing sheets anyways. And that will be the last of our drivers able to set a time with, it looks like, I believe, 22 of them potentially signing up or lining up on the grid for our latest round in the season. Glad to see a little bit of a climb in attendance here for the series. And as the session ticks over, the cars start to grid. That takes us to our graphic with Mayorga on the pole position and Jad Duncan starting next to him. Matt Steele will begin from third, while BJ Fulton will be fourth. Row 3 sees Michael Johnson starting fifth, and then Dylan Scott in the sixth position. Andrew Chinichi, a little bit far down for him there in seventh place. Wonder if he's got more pace than that in the race itself. Mark Rondeau will be to his outside, and then it's Dustin Heindel starting in ninth and Michael Bolton rounding out your top 10. On the next graphic, it's going to be Ian Roche starting in 11th with Will Castillo in 12th, as Doug Bacchignon will start 13th, Heath Spencer 14th, and Robert Leclerc in 15th. Not sure that Daniel Collins will actually grid up here today. What about the GT4s, Joey?
Your pole sitter is that gray number 27, Federico Del Toro, going to be leading that class to the green flag. Daniel Vaverko is going to be lining up next to him there in that second place. Adam Abrams rolling off in third with Rob Russell next to him on row number 2 in fourth. Christopher Marciniak going to be rolling off in fifth. Larry Haas, sixth. Then John Momeyer is going to be rounding out that 7-car GT4 field here at Road Atlanta.
Also seeing just a slight bump in numbers today. Not too surprising, as we said, Road Atlanta tends to be quite popular with drivers, so kind of figured we'd see a good number show up here today as they're just waiting for everybody to grid up, and then they'll be sent off on a very short pace lap. You can see this is starting just before that final chicane, and so there won't be much time to try and get those tires up to temperature. Remember, they do have at least one scheduled pit stop in this one, and I hope you practice that pit entry on this one, Joey.
I'm happy that you mentioned it. I completely forgot about it in that race rundown that here in this season, yeah, we are doing pit stops, right? The races are 45 minutes long, and where that pit entry is basically just out of our camera frame on driver's left. You come out the exit of 10A, 10B, up over the hill, and then you better be on driver's right. Otherwise, you are not even going to make that pit road entry. That's only half the battle. You got to get it slowed down before hitting the guardrail before you get on the pit lane speed limiter, too.
And I've seen a number of drivers do that over the years here in the sim, so definitely don't want to embarrass yourself by ruining your race just trying to take your scheduled pit stop. Looks like pace car is already in. Mayorga has control of the field, coming up to the line, and there's the green flag. He gets on the throttle well, but behind them, my goodness, we're already 3 wide. It's a narrow run down into the first corner. Something's got to give way here with Michael Johnson stuck in the middle. He's going to make contact with BJ Fulton.
We got one car off to the side, and the GT4s are pretty much right on top of it as they go up and over the hill. For turn number 3, the first time, you see lots of those curbs jumping that apex curb there. Make sure you get the run down through these S's.
Del Toro holds on to the lead down to the GT4, so good start for him. They did not split the field much on this one, so they're right on top of each other. It's a good thing we didn't have a bigger accident out there. Meanwhile, it looks like Johnson was able to carry on, still sitting in 6th, just down 1 position from where he started. Behind him, a little bit of a charge from, I think that was Dustin Heindel making a move. But now they head down the long backstretch.
Try to stay in this slipstream as much as you can. Gain on that car directly in front. And we've got a yellow flag on the racetrack. Looks like we're going to be bunching them all back up and having a restart, as it looks like some of these drivers just now getting that news of the full course yellow.
Indeed, trying to get back into position there. I think that was Mark Rondeau getting close to rear-ending Michael Johnson, but thankfully nothing became of that. Ian Roche looks like he is suddenly taking a toe in a pit lane, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but for those not familiar with the series, this is essentially an automated caution. If the drivers accrue too many incident points on the first lap, it is automatically thrown by software that they have running. So this prevents any drivers from winding up being too far back after getting caught up in an accident and spreading out the field. And I have a feeling this was definitely a good contributor to that incident count.
I definitely think so, and I'm going to try to go back and look at it on my screen as well. It just seemed like Michael Johnson hooked a hard left from that inside line. I would imagine that there was probably contact on either probably one side or the other, and unfortunately you said The other car just kind of getting the bad end of the stick. The other car that I noticed on our initial start, that green flag jump, Joe, was Rob Russell in the number 21 Cayman GT4. The GT4 start was a little bit looser than the RSRs up front, and he just timed it so perfectly, had the head of steam going down the hill, and actually gained 2 positions.
Nicely done. Now, if you're wondering where BJ Fulton went in all of this, he actually came in to take one of his spare cars. So he had worked his way up to, I think, between first and second in the GT4s. So he wouldn't have had that many cars to pass. And, oh, I take that back. There we go. Here he is on screen now. They are waving him past all the GT4s, so he will get to restart with his class. That is good to see, because otherwise that was going to be a headache for him, having to overtake all those GT4s.
The good thing, though, is that there is passing opportunities here at Road Atlanta. It is a single-file racetrack in some areas, specifically Turn 3, Turn 5, but there's other areas that you can definitely poke the nose out, force a car maybe off of the racing line for your fortune, and maybe even snag those positions. So, yeah, BJ Fulton got to climb out of a hole, but here at Road Atlanta, you can do that.
Well, and speaking of having to make passes, as we're going to check out Rob Russell here, timing that from way far back and having to weave his way through. Now, what happens coming into turn 1? 27 to his inside. There's Fulton off the course. Everybody giving him plenty of berth off the corner. And, yeah, just a couple positions gained there by our driver in the GT4s there coming from the back, Rob Russell. But I was going to say, you mentioned trying to make overtakes. Well, this track also kind of known for traffic being a bit of a pain, especially in multi-class coming through the S's section. But we usually see that with the prototypes and GT3 cars here lately. What's it going to look like with these GTEs and GT4s?
It's a very good point to bring up. And yeah, we're looking right here at a giant funnel. The first funnel is at the top of the hill entering the S's, and the second funnel is right here at turn number 5. I do think that the RSR cars just have such a tremendous amount of grip between the aero and also just these giant, huge fender flares on them with the big old wheels and tires that their grip levels far out supersede the GT4s. Now, as long as you get past the GT4 at the right time, you won't be affected. However, if you don't get by the GT4, let's say going down the hill, it can cost you a lot of momentum. So I think it's more judging those times, not running over your competitors out there. Because remember, it is 2 different classes, but we're all still playing on the same playground. You don't want to go up there and nudge somebody off for no reason at all if they're not in your class.
Exactly. So here's Larry Haas. And we got into the back of Momeyer coming up into turn 3. Now, was that under caution, or was that actually during the race?
I am not sure. That looks like he was on the first lap, which was probably adding to those incident points which caused the yellow flag.
Yeah, we're getting confirmation that was at the start of the race. Okay, so yeah, you're right. That probably did contribute it, because even just those 2 incidents, there's 8 incident points right there alone. I'm sure there's a few that added as well. Looks like pace car is already in, so thankfully, short laps means short caution periods. We've got Sam Mayorga in control once more. This time, I believe he should be allowed to go when he pleases, since they do have to wait for the green at the initial start. Green flag is out anyways, and Andrew Chinichi back there in third, gained a lot of positions at the start of this race. He's on the charge, looking for the inside. Behind him, we got a battle between Scott and Steele, and they're going to once again have to get pretty single file as they come up to turn 3.
It was an impressive move from Chinichi around the outside of that black and yellow car of Jad Duncan to take away second place, and now Michael Johnson and Matt Steele are side by side going down the S. Steele's going to go 4 wheels off in the grass, all sorts of wiggles, and now he has to lock them down into turn number 5.
Thankfully keeps it from becoming a wreck. Mark Rondeau also goes wide out of turn 5, so a number of cars having some scary moments. Del Toro still leads down to the GT4s in your background, with Rob Russell continuing to run in second position. So a little bit of almost looked like ghost contact between Michael Johnson and Matt Steele there. But that's now the second car that we've seen Michael Johnson get kind of aggressive with.
If it was the real world, he would say, oh man, I'm going to go have to meet with the race stewards in the trailer after this one. Thankfully, all he's got to do is hang out with his buddies and maybe just kind of issue an apology after today. But in my opinion, I think both of them have kind of been racing incidents. Sometimes it is difficult to see when those cars are next to you side by side here in the sim, and Michael Johnson carries on in fifth right now.
Big moment there for Castillo and Rondeau, or excuse me, Castillo and Heindel, we were looking at coming off the final turn, getting close to the edge of the track, out to that very tall wall on the outside that really is unforgiving in these cars. Castillo still running in 8th position behind Heindel there in that light blue machine. They'll now head up over turn 5, both of them looking to get a good exit off there, and it is a very good one for the 22.
Could have sworn you referenced Paul Wall, but it was a tall wall instead of Paul Wall out there in turn number 1. Will Castillo has done a very good job on the limited amount of green flag we've had so far, plus 4 positions in this orange number 22. However, he's got Mark Rondeau in that Hot Wheels theme machine. He is crawling up the back end right now using that slipstream, getting that little bit closer. 155 miles an hour, 160 miles an hour now, 165 before they finally jump on those binders, get the thing slowed down here for 10A and B.
Ooh, and we've had a big accident for Rob Russell. It looks like the car has to pull to a halt and take a tow. Back to battle between Dylan Scott and Jad Duncan for this 3rd position coming up out of turn 1. Oh, and somebody off the track as well there. Didn't quite make out who that was, but looks like this place is already biting. Oh, and it's Chinichi.
It was Andrew Chinichi, the driver that absolutely dominated this past week, now finds himself back down on pit road after, I believe, a mistake going into turn number 1. It is such a fast corner that it can definitely bite you out very, very fast. Dylan Scott here is this car with the white and turquoise theme, and this is that incident with Rob Russell. Oh no, looks like maybe Rob wasn't aware of the other GT4 car there next to him, and that was a heavy impact.
I don't think I've ever seen somebody hit that part of the track, actually, and boy, it spat him across pretty hard. No wonder the car couldn't carry on from there. He's going to have to come in for that spare car. Meanwhile, Dylan Scott, Jad Duncan now battling for what is 2nd position, with Chinichi having his issues. So this is for the podium. Johnson gets promoted up to 4th behind them as well. Whoa, and look at this fight.
Rondeau's going to take it 3 wide. He's the car all the way down to the inside. They do leave room. Holy smokes, look at the run. This is Doug Boccignone here in this bright green car forcing his way up into the battle, but it is still between Rondeau, Castillo, and also Heindel. They're still side by side. This is one of those funnel areas. Turn number 3, Rondeau picks up 2 positions.
Oh, man, Heindel really, or Castillo really wanted it off of Heindel there for a brief moment. Couldn't quite make it work. And on his charge back through the field, BJ Fulton has caught up to them. He's got a great opportunity here to make a bunch of spots. There's one. Will Castillo with an off at turn 5.
That exit curb of turn number 5 can be so dangerous, and it definitely caught out this orange number 22 this lap. And you saw how much track position he definitely lost. Oh, but check this one out. Dylan Scott officially in the slipstream. He's going to be poking out drivers left. He's just got to outbrake Jad Duncan here in turn 10A. A little bit of contact as they get the car slowed down.
Boy, they are feisty here today at Road Atlanta, and that will give the spot to the 08. So P2 for Dylan Scott. Jad Duncan slots back down into 3rd. The more they fight, the more we're going to see that purple car of Michael Johnson get bigger in their mirrors. And he's also bringing along Michael Bolton with him.
Getting by already the first set of lapped cars here with the Cayman GT4s. This is BJ Fulton in this chrome martini livery, finally getting by. That was the bright green car of Doug Boccignone. So remember, BJ had that early incident in turn number 1. He's well on his way, though. He's got his eyes set towards the front, maybe even the back end of that purple car.
Yeah, that's most of that group. But it looks like they have separated, though, as we come back to Michael Johnson. Still catching up to Jad Duncan. In fact, it looks like he's caught up quite a bit in just this half a lap. And Bolton just riding his coattails. He's going to be happy to get that slipstream. They'll go on past the lapped car of Rob Russell, who stays out of the way, and sizing him up, sees his mentor right in front of him and is going to try and see if he can show some moves down into the chicane. Looks a little far back to me, and indeed, he'll get back onto the racing line.
Sometimes you just got to put a move out there to try to distract the competitor. Through replay on top here of Chinichi, and it looked like a small mistake, but we've seen at Watkins Glen, we've seen at some of these high-speed racetracks that if you lower the wing level in these RSRs, they just don't have the rear-end grip, and at turn number 1, it is incredibly fast. It just looked a little loose for Andrew.
Did not work out.
Oh, no.
That's Roshan Bacchignon at turn 1. I don't know if that was looseness or if they made some contact, but whatever the case, it seems to have involved one another, both making it back onto the circuit, so it looks like they'll be able to carry on.
I'm sure we'll get a replay of that one. Definitely very similar. Like you said, the loose factor came into play in that one. The Ian Roche, I believe, getting into the back of that bright green car. So this is Mark Rondeau, followed by Dustin Heindel as well as BJ Fulton. Here's the replay. Watch the white and red car just, in my opinion, missed the braking marker, got loose, and unfortunately Doug was there.
Like, wasn't too great of a hit, so he may still need a spare car, but actually kind of curious when we'll get to that pit window here, because I suspect there should be at least a few cars that are able to stop in pretty soon as we come around through turn 3. Viverko, bit of a new face around here, chasing on Marciniak, who we have seen this season, but not before this season, running in second place, about 7.5 seconds behind our leader, Del Toro.
What really is impressive as we ride on board with this number 19 was the last lap time, 126.7. That is on top of the fastest race lap for this class, and you compare it to Marciniak, who's directly in front, a 127.2, so about 3/4 of a second faster is Viverko. This battle between Johnson and Bolton is still getting on. Oh my goodness, he thought about showing the nose down in turn number 7. I think this is the smarter play. See if he can use the slipstream down the back straightaway.
What amuses me is both the Michaels have talked extensively about their time working together. Johnson being a teacher and has been an instructor in real-world racing as well. And Bolton has been one of his students of recent years. Apparently has been getting better and better with his lessons, because it seems like anymore he's just as fast, if not sometimes faster than Johnson.
I think right now, if you want to kind of get in the head of Johnson, you got to stay tucked up in that slipstream on the back straightaway. We've seen for multiple laps now this bright yellow and black car of Bolton kind of dive out. Drivers left about 2/3 of the way down the straightaway. And that's fine if you're just trying to play the mind game against Michael Johnson. However, you can still use that toe, still use that slipstream to get closer and closer and closer, and then show the nose at the end of the straightaway. A little bit more of a surprising move rather than presenting the car very early for Michael to say, oh, okay, there you are.
Fulton and Steele have both pitted. Steele seems to be in for quite a bit longer, though, as BJ is already out and on his way. And I kind of like this move by Fulton, because I think now he's got some clear track to try and leapfrog a few of his rivals. Meanwhile, speaking of leapfrogging, lap traffic going to be coming in thick and fast now for Michael Johnson.
Speaking of that pit strategy, with the yellow flag, I think that some of these drivers are going to have to think a little bit more on their feet, because remember, if you have a pre-programmed amount of fuel that you're going to put in the car, well, under yellow flag, you're burning a lot less fuel. So you have to make those adjustments. Any extra fuel that you're carrying is just extra weight that's going to slow down the car.
That's a good point. And I wonder if Steele was aware of that one as we watch Johnson continue to try and defend on Bolton. Just ahead of them, that is Jad Duncan. That is for the 3rd position. So Michael doesn't want to really fool around too much with this rear guard. He probably wants to try and be thinking forward and attack, see if he can get onto that podium position.
It's going to become an interesting race, right? Because the more Michael Johnson is going to close in on Jad Duncan, well, guess what? Bolton's still right there. So as soon as Michael catches the other yellow and black car, it's going to kind of have to be, what do you call it? The chameleon eyes, one eye out the front, one eye out the back.
Exactly. Pointing every which way and make sure that you don't lose track of where your rivals are or where this traffic is. Thankfully, staying middle of the track there for Michael Bolton, not ducking in front of him at the last moment. Good on the brakes, though, here for the 127 car.
You saw Michael Johnson, though, kind of didn't have the best braking zone, but look at where he made up the time, was all on that exit. And now look at how far down the road that purple car is from Michael Bolton. So I think maybe in a passing opportunity, watch out for the aggressiveness on the brakes from this 127. But I think when you're looking at ultimate lap time, that late apex and standing on the throttle on corner exit benefited Michael Johnson.
And even if his student seems to have earned quite a bit of speed these recent years, one thing that you can't replace is Johnson has decades of experience in real racing, including in multi-class. And I have a feeling that's going to come in handy throughout this race with him having to be multitasking, shall we say.
I'm pretty impressed. I know that we haven't talked much about Dylan Scott because he's just out of frame, but they are still attached to him. There he is, kind of in the white and light blue turquoise themed car, about 2 seconds up the road. Jad Duncan, Michael Johnson, Michael Bolton is that trio right now, just all trying to find their own pace. And it seems like when Jad puts together a fast lap, Michael kind of drops back a little bit, but then the next lap, Michael's a little bit faster than Jad. And then the third lap, Michael Bolton is the fastest of the group. They're all just kind of swapping it around.
Who can be the most consistent out of the crew? We had talked about that at the top of the show as well. Seems to be a bit of a theme here, an important one. And well, Mayorga is definitely one of the most consistent because he continues to lead overall in this. But I have to imagine that Federico Del Toro's kind of happy that maybe he's decided to switch classes. There is Sam Mayorga. He was really putting a shellacking on everybody else in that GT4 class, and now other people have an actual shot to win.
I got a little bit of a soft spot here for the paint on Mayorga's car because it's an Advan kind of themed livery, and my very first race car, Joe, that I ever had, a 1990 Spec Miata, I painted it exactly like this with the black and the red Advan triangle going out the back. It brings back some memories for sure.
I mean, you didn't just spray paint a number on the side and send it on its way?
It was number 69, so I did have the giggles.
Apparently. Well, as Mayorga ticks another lap off, eventually he's going to have to pit in. We'll see where he puts himself. Andrew Chinichi back out on track, but sadly running last of his class right now.
He is running last, but making up at least one position here with Marc Rondeau. And oh, there goes Rondeau back deep on the brakes. There's our GT4 class leader. Federico stays well out of the way. I don't think he wanted to see a battle of these two RSRs come crawling up the rearview mirror. And now Andrew back down to the inside through turn number 12. It's a drag race here to turn 1.
I love this. It's a battle not to be last, and they're fighting like it is for the win, even with 23 minutes left to go. Nice cutback from Rondeau. He would have had the inside, but he decides to give it up coming down into turn 3. So Chinichi holds on to that 14th place, at least for this lap, and sets off 38 seconds up the road to try and catch 13th, which is Doug Bacchignon.
And while we're, call it right about smack halfway through, I think I see a problem with the number 14 car, Heath Spencer. But I wanted to touch on that GT4 class. You had mentioned Federico Del Toro, probably pretty happy that Sam Mayorga swapped out the classes to go to the RSR. But that driver has always been doing so good, progressing his skill level, constantly learning every single race that POC does out here. And right now it's paying off for him out in front of that class lead.
Shows the speed that is there. And Michael Johnson has caught up to Jad Duncan, but you might be wondering, where'd Michael Bolton go? Well, he pitted in. We could see it on the the picture-in-picture of our screen that he had stopped in for a brief moment. He's back out in 9th position and actually just behind, BJ Fulton. I didn't notice that before. He got passed by BJ, who did, in fact, use the undercut.
Good strategy. Not only the undercut, but I'm looking at the timing and scoring, the pit box times. BJ Fulton was stationary 29.2 seconds. Michael Bolton stationary for 33.6 seconds. So, I mean, that's 4.5 seconds shorter that BJ Fulton was in pit lane. I also wonder if he maybe calculated for a little bit less fuel based off of those yellow flag laps.
It's certainly feeling like it. At least we hope that he didn't short fuel it that much. And he'll wind up sputtering to the end of the race. Back to Bolton here as we check out what went on with Heath Spencer. Oh, and another victim of turn 5, which has seen many cars wind up as junk over that crest.
Look, I know how bad turn number 5 is. I've spun there twice in competition. It is just such a tricky corner, and you have to go barreling over those exit curbs in order to keep the momentum. So it's just a tricky corner here at Road Atlanta, and it's just one of the many faces that can bite you.
It really can. And Heath is now back into pit lane because of that. Michael Bolton still working on BJ Fulton, both of them having taken their pit stop. They're waiting for the rest of the field to kind of reveal what they are going to do. And so far, top 7 have remained out on the circuit, including these two, Michael Johnson versus Jad Duncan, closer than ever. That purple number 9 to the 83 machine, and he stalks him down the back stretch, forcing him to hold that inside line. Is he going to leave enough of a door open? Maybe just a car's width. In fact, Michael Johnson's going to find the opening and might make his way up into 3rd place. I didn't think he was going to be able to outbrake him.
Nicely done by that purple number 9, and he was all the way down to the inside of the track like you were mentioning and still got the car stopped on that dirty stuff, and Jad Duncan did not make that pass easy. I'm going to point something out, though. That last lap time combined with the previous one, they got caught up by some GT4 traffic. That doesn't really seem like an issue, right, when you're just battling the car next to you. However, we've been catching all those cars that are early pitting. Is that undercut going to play off because someone got held up in the middle of the race?
That's a good point. Unfortunately, it looks like there may have been more than a holdup for Michael Bolton. I think he may have had an accident because he's now 10th and well behind BJ Fulton. We got it here. This is up and over turn 5. Is it another one? Oh, traffic. Oh, and with Heath Spencer.
And that must have been like consecutive laps for Heath at turn number 5. You got a feel for him. I think he was just kind of caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'd be curious. I'm going to go look at maybe an overhead view because that was definitely 3 wide catching a GT4 car, and it just seemed like they tripped over each other.
Interesting. Yeah, was not expecting probably that car to be there in that moment. This is Adam Abrams, who I think is going to be getting another position soon. Because, yes, he's 17 seconds behind Larry Haas, but Larry has a black flag. Now, I'm not sure what it is for, but most likely it's either incident limits or he sped coming out of pit lane. But doesn't matter which, really. Either way, he's going to have to come down and serve that. And Adam will basically inherit one for free.
Doug Boccignone here crawling all over the back of that white and red car of Ian Roche, trying to use that slipstream down this long straightaway. And thankfully, these are Porsches. They stay glued down to this back straightaway.
Yeah, they certainly seem to be giving a nice little tow. The question is, can he make the pass as he's very shallow into the corner and is thankfully able to make that turn, but Ian Roche will deny him. He'll hold on to that top 10 for now.
Down the hill they charge here. Another lap ticked off, about 18 minutes remaining Here in this one, that gray GT4 car, that's your class leader of Federico Del Toro. Look at what he's doing. He's leaving the entire inside of the track open, and I'm sure that he maybe caught his breath a little bit there. Even with all that inside track open, it was still a pretty close call.
He's taking no chances. He's had to miss out on a win twice now. And he's very clearly in first place around the outside for Sam Mayorga on the lapped car of Bacignon. He also makes that one work. I don't usually see cars having to try and go too wide through turn 5 like that.
Normally not. Remember how we were talking about those funnel points? And the top of the S's is definitely one. And going into turn number 5 can definitely be a second funnel, because if you catch a car down at the bottom of the S's and you've carried all that momentum, well, guess what? These RSRs, they do have a lot more cornering speed in terms of that minimum speed that they can roll through. Let's take a second look at this incident here. I think that Heath Spencer initially got out of the way, saw these two cars, and then unfortunately tried to pass, but Bolton wasn't clear yet. He got contact, and you saw all three of them end up heavy in the wall.
Yeah, I wonder if Bolton had to ease up a bit too, and that maybe messed up the timing for Spencer. Regardless, that whole thing was a mess and just kind of wound up ruining a couple of days. As we come back to Jad Duncan, now that Michael Johnson has passed him, he's been stretching away to the tune of about 1.7 seconds, but neither has pitted in yet. The caution flag at the start has really opened up this pit window, it appears.
Right, and I think traditionally there's kind of two strategies that are played here in POC. A lot of the drivers, they just split it right down the middle, halfway. So that would be about 20 minutes, 22 minutes that you would be pitting in for that halfway point. The other strategy is to just run this entire first tank out as light as you can get it and then put a minimum amount of fuel in the car. Right now, it seems like that second strategy is what the entire top 7 is employing. Top 7.
Well, the one this also might be working out for is BJ Fulton, having pitted earlier, really wants them to try and make more of a dramatic difference. So he has more time to try and get ahead of them. And Jad Duncan, Michael Johnson, that was a lapped car. That was Bolton, who he was fighting with earlier. So that's why that one looked familiar. And Bolton, who is definitely a good sportsman, was not going to try and fight him for that and just let him through. Or, well, at least remind him he's there, it looks like, though.
It's going to be interesting. I know that we were just talking about that strategy as Bolton and Johnson continue kind of the duel, albeit not for position anymore. Like you said, definitely very close friends, work together all the time in terms of the coaching and turning laps in the virtual world, and definitely paying off with a little bit of speed now for Michael Bolton, albeit a lap down. I was going to make the point, though, that pit stop strategy, BJ Fulton, we keep talking about the undercut. Most of the cars are stationary for about 30 seconds, call it. And BJ Fulton is only 41 seconds behind the race leader. That could be very close.
Absolutely. And just a small correction. They're not stationary. That's cone to cone time that you're looking at there. It's looking, I was trying to do that math myself, and I think you're right that it's going to be tight on where he comes out to. I don't think he's going to hassle Mayorga, but I do think that, Dylan Scott is a possibility.
Dylan Scott, Michael Johnson, Jad Duncan, I think that's pretty much right where he's going to be popping out. And look at this on screen, Michael Johnson getting held up by a GT4 car as well. It is not the GT4 car's fault. He can't just disappear outside of the racetrack. It's up to each one of these cars to figure out the fastest way around, as we see Dylan Scott on the top of the screen. That was one of your front runners finally hitting pit lane.
All right, so this is going to answer our question pretty quickly. Here's BJ Fulton, who we were trying to watch and see if he can catch him. There is Scott in his pit stop. He's still filling. It's a long stop for Dylan Scott. 11.8 seconds. Very long in comparison. BJ Fulton is coming up to turn 1. Scott is just exiting. He is not able to jump him, but he has got to be so much closer than he was before.
And crucially, got to remember, BJ Fulton already up to speed. It's not like Dylan Scott's going to take multiple laps to get there, but that first couple corners does play into that momentum factor. So now BJ Fulton can physically see that 0.8 in front of him. It's almost like the carrot on the string.
Fastest lap for BJ Fulton, a 16.7. Dylan Scott, a 16.4. So Scott theoretically still is the faster car, but then we don't know if BJ Fulton was having to deal with so much traffic that he hasn't really been able to show how quickly he can go. Sam Mayorga, in the meantime, is pitting, as you can see in the upper right hand of your screen. But yeah, definitely, as we ride on board with Fulton, you're right. He can absolutely see his target.
It'll be an interesting kind of, call it Magic Man act of BJ Fulton here, because I do think he's going to pop out pretty much right next to Michael Johnson, if not in front of Michael Johnson. And I think Michael's going to be like, didn't I elbow you off the track in turn number 1? Where did you come from?
Coming up into turn 1. Ooh, that was a big correction on the way into the corner for BJ Fulton. Goes by our leader of the GT4s. Still trying to see whether or not he can catch. And maybe this traffic will be an important factor in that. We did say that you have to watch out where you catch those cars. It goes by Marciniak. And BJ Fulton having to do likewise. Definitely gets caught up through turn 5.
You always want to be getting on the gas as soon as you can to maximize that top speed down each one of the straightaways. And yeah, when you got a car, especially a slower car, parked in front of you at apex, it can kind of be a little bit difficult, throw off that rhythm a little bit. But now that he's behind and in the rearview mirror, you just kind of hit that mental reset, if you will. Focus on the next series of corners, focus on that next brake marker, and get back to it.
This is our current leader, but Michael Johnson still needs to give us a pit stop. Now, he was just held up. We saw the tail end of it right there by quite a bit of traffic, both within the GTEs and GT4s, Bacchignon being amongst them. So that's not going to help Michael in his hopes of coming out ahead of guys like Fulton. As this is an interesting one here with Michael Bolton and Doug Bacchignon. That is for position, 11th spot that they're vying for.
See if Bacchignon can maybe force the issue here. He's definitely closing it in. You see that bright green car get closer and closer and closer, and now Bolton's going to go right in the middle of the racetrack. Force Doug right on the racing line. Deep on the brakes goes the green machine. Can he get the car stopped? A little bit out of shape was Michael Bolton, but now he fights back on the corner exit.
Seen that work plenty of times, but they're going to have to go too wide. He'll chop across, and that is back into 11th for Bolton. Bacchignon going to get overtaken by Jad Duncan, so that's him trying to lap him. That actually is important there, because remember, Jad does not want to get slowed up too much in all of this, chasing Michael Johnson, who is the current leader, but the damage has already been done. He's about 5 seconds behind the 9 car.
It's going to be tough to make up that big of a gap, and here you see Bacchignon doing the right thing, right? We had mentioned the speed difference between the two classes, but you still have to play on the same playground. You can't just go barging through your competitors. Here's a replay on the top of the screen of how close it really got. Almost a 3-wide moment here between GT4 cars, Michael Johnson coming through, and Doug just being extremely respectful.
Yeah, leaping off the track, in fact, to try and make way, because he didn't want to ruin the leader's race, at least the temporary leader. Still waiting on Johnson and Duncan to pit in, and Del Toro, our leader down in the GT4s, also still owes us a stop. Is this where we see Johnson dive in? Nope, he is going to stay out for this lap. Duncan is going to do likewise in the 83.
With about 9 minutes remaining as Michael crossed the line there, I think we're going to be, call it 7 laps-ish, right? Because he still has to do that pit stop. You're running out of time. As I say, the sand is running out of the hourglass. He's going to have to hit pit road soon.
Definitely. I can't think that they'd be able to make the full 45 minutes, even with the caution at the start of this race. Although, if I know Michael Johnson, that does sound like something he would try and do. It would be sneaky, but that seems like a bit too much of a stretch.
And I also wonder about the rule set. I'm really bad at reading the asterisks and the small fine print in a lot of this stuff. I wonder if the cars are mandatory that they have to do a pit road stop, or if you feel like you can stretch it, go for it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll actually have to check that as well, because that might be something where they just limited the fuel to try and force it, but didn't have anything written that says you must take the stop. And he's got a chance to pit in this time, and he will. So Johnson down to woe it up on the chicane into the pit entry. Nice and smooth for him. Duncan will follow suit in the 83. And now we're just waiting on for Federico Del Toro to pit down in the GT4s, and that's everybody.
I can report off screen that Andrew Chinichi had another problem on the racetrack. Remember, he kind of lost the car in turn 1 all by himself earlier. And this time, Joe, it's turn number 5 that bit Chinichi as the rest of the leaders are blending back out onto the racetrack.
Johnson is going to emerge in what appears to be second position. It worked out beautifully for him. And part of that was Dylan Scott's pit stop time, 11.8 seconds that he waited in his stall to Johnson's 7.5. Speaking of which, Sam Mayorga, 11.1, another one that maybe didn't take into account that he needed less fuel due to the caution laps. But it was a bit of a moot point because Sam still has about 8 seconds over Michael Johnson.
BJ Fulton was able to clear that lapped car at an incredibly crucial moment. He was about 3 seconds behind Dylan Scott, and now it's only about 1.7 seconds behind Dylan Scott. So here's Federico Del Toro. You were mentioning the GT4 class leader still had to come down pit road. Here he is. He's going to make that fuel stop.
Surely this has got to be a very short stop. Like you were saying, there's only so many laps left, 6 minutes on the clock, and the GT4s do even slower laps around here. So he's got even less laps than our GTE cars. Still waiting to see him emerge. Yeah, it was 9.6 seconds for him, and he'll get back out easily ahead of Viverco in the number 19.
So this is BJ Fulton. Unfortunately, remember how he had that crucial corner, like I said, maybe a lap and a half ago? Well, he's got 1, 2, and 3 GT4 cars that he is going to have to make his way by. This is one of those funnel sections. He gets to the inside there. Now he's got that gray car with the red wheels. That is your class leader, Federico Del Toro, who's been out front managing the race all day long. They all get by, and oh my goodness, there was another 3-wide moment between multi-class.
Very similar to what we saw earlier, except this time, thankfully, everybody kept it pointed forward, and off they go. Maybe just a little bit more scared than before. Rob Russell, after such a great start to this race, it all kind of unraveled around him. He sits in 6th in class right now. We ride on board with him. He is trying to get one more, see if he can crack into the top 5. John Momeyer directly in front of him.
Utilize whatever you can get in terms of a hole of air, and now a huge late lunge here into turn number 10. Looks like John Momeyer is going to be able to defend it. Nice job from Rob Russell not to overshoot that brake marker, and now he's actually going to capitalize. Better acceleration coming off of the corner. Drives right by that number 6.
Wasted no time. Impressive stuff from Rob. So, unfortunately, that's probably about the highest he's going to go. Christopher Marciniak in front of him is about half a minute up the way. So, doubt he'll be able to make up that much in about 4 minutes' time, unless there's some drama in front of him here shortly. In fact, let me see. Where is our overall leader? Mayorga is going to be coming to the line probably within the next 20 seconds. So, yeah, about 3 minutes left to go, or 3 laps left to go, rather.
And as we watch Rob Russell, here's our class leader, Federico Del Toro. I think he's been doing a great job, right? That last lap time was kind of a little bit slower because he was down pit road, but his fastest lap, a 126.4, leads this entire GT4 class. I do want to give credit, though, to that number 19 car that's sitting in second place, Daniel Viverco. He is 9 seconds behind Federico, but you look at that data, look at that lap time. A 126.5 is his fastest lap, only about a tenth of a second off of our leader. A good close competition, and keeping Federico honest, because if he makes a mistake, Daniel's going to be right there.
And I just realized Viverco's pit stop was about 8 seconds longer. So if he had had a pit stop the same length as Del Toro, he probably would have been right with him. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting how this has worked out. Not sure why his was so much longer in comparison to a lot of the others around him, but that may have been his undoing. As he would have had a realistic shot at trying to steal this one away from the 27.
Like the 7-Eleven themed livery. I think it was one of the other cars. In fact, directly behind Daniel Viverco is the Simpsons donut themed livery. I think that and 7-Eleven go hand in hand.
Absolutely. This is very aughts Tony Kanaan, I guess you could say, with this Porsche as they come up and over turn 5 once again. Oh, what we got going on with Chad Duncan? Dylan Scott just in front of him and might be behind him pretty soon as they both go into the chicane, and a big wobble from Scott is going to lose him the position, and on goes through Chad Duncan. That was the car of Andrew Chinichi as well, so that wasn't another position gone in that as we come back to replay for Dylan. Now, what put him in this spot? Oh!
So I missed this part. I saw the top of the hill right here at turn number 3. It is a nightmare lap for Dylan Scott. Comes back out onto the racetrack, misses turn number 3. So there goes BJ Fulton because Dylan Scott's got to slow down right now. There's one position lost, and then we saw live Chad Duncan going by Dylan Scott on the back straightaway. So and then more problems right now coming out of turn number 5. So Dylan just kind of unraveling here with a couple minutes left.
He's just got to hold on to it for a couple more laps, and then he can park it and maybe try and figure out what went wrong with this race. And in fact, we are getting the white flag just about now. Sam Mayorga is coming across the line as we speak, and Michael Johnson might be about 10 seconds back, but he's looking at a pretty good run up from 5th at the start of this race. And how about BJ Fulton from off the course on lap 1, turn 1 to looking at a podium?
I think that's definitely the story of the race, is that 82 of BJ Fulton. Because you're right. I mean, literally didn't even get through the first corner before he was knocked off the racetrack. But management, and that's exactly what Sam Mayorga's done, right? We saw it out of the GT4 class. One of the cars, I believe that's Doug, getting a little out of shape in turn number 5 in front. But Sam's got a 10-second gap. He can afford to let off the gas and basically cruise this as a victory lap.
Very much so. He's not taking any chances with the lap traffic. That was Adam Abrams just trying to stay out of the way. Nice podium for Adam as well. He's going to come home with a good haul of points. So Mayorga did indeed pick up where he left off and carried on the trend, just not with the same car. And everybody here in the GTEs are going to be wondering, what do we got to do to now beat this guy that looks quick in just about anything you put him in? Sam Mayorga going to take a victory here in round 3, but his first one in the GTE class.
Nicely done from that black and red number 10 car. And in the distance, Michael Johnson is going to be coming down across the line. Second place for this purple number 9 car, with BJ Fulton looking to round out that podium.
I wonder if BJ's feeling a little hard done by, since it was Michael that kind of shoved him off, but we're pretty sure he hasn't had a chance to really look at what happened in the meantime. Dylan Scott, only 5th place after it seemed like he had an easy second in his grasp. And then we take a look at this man who has been wanting this win for quite some time. And Federico Del Toro finally gets the chance. He's not wasting the opportunity. This was a great drive from the 27.
And crucially, where the GTE leaders were, he's basically going to put an entire lap on the rest of his GT4 competition, just up and over the hill here. Don't have to worry about that RSR behind. Federico Del Toro claiming the win in the Cayman GT4.
Excellent job for Federico. And Viverco will be able to finish on the same lap, the only other car able to be ahead of our overall leader. So he'll get about 11 seconds between himself and Del Toro. But again, could have been a whole lot closer. So maybe strategy, the thing to work on for that number 19 car between now and the next race. That should be everybody done. So let's go through our finishing order. As Sam Mayorga, like we said, was your winner here today. Michael Johnson was P2. Then it was BJ Fulton in the third position, and Chad Duncan wound up in fourth. After that, Dylan Scott was P5, Dustin Heindel in sixth, and Matt Steele in the seventh position. Will Castillo comes home in eighth. Robert Leclerc had quite a gain today, up 6. In fact, I think he may have been our hardest charger. And then Ian Roche finished in 10th. On the next page, you've got Michael Bolton, sadly only getting 11th, but he was on the lead lap, so he did a good job trying to minimize the damage. Then it was Doug Boccignone, the first one, a lap down in 12th. Ron Doe in 13th, and Shinichi 2 laps down in 14th, with Heath Spencer and Daniel Collins multiple laps down, unfortunately, down there at the back of the field. What about our GT4s?
It was that gray and red themed car, the number 27, your pole sitter, leading all of the laps and claiming victory. Federico Del Toro. Second place, Daniel Viverco. Nice job right there to basically keep Federico honest the entire race and put in a nice fast race lap himself. Adam Abrams going to be rounding out that podium in third place. Christopher Marciniak in fourth. Rob Russell, after that great start, kind of had a few little issues, drops back to fifth. Mo Meyer, sixth, and Larry Haas rounding out that GT4 field in seventh.
Looks like we've got our winner ready to chat with us here from the GTE class. And Sam, congratulations on the win. You've switched cars, but you made it look like you really had no issues with that.
Oh man, thanks man. Yeah, it was so this was I think my second time driving the RSR. The first time was on Thursday, tried to get some laps in, and came back from the weekend of driving a real car around, and oh man, what a fun car. It's like controlled chaos on, through turn 1 and so many of these corners with the engine behind you.
Well, you made it look pretty easy out there once again. You find yourself really unfazed by a lot of the others. Are you going to be sticking with this car for the remainder of the season, or are you hopping back to the GT4 after this?
Yeah, I think I'd like to stick with this car, and I think that's the plan. I like that the field's a little bit bigger, and that I can have some fun.
Well, next time out, we're going to be heading over to Imola for the following round. Have you raced that track before?
You know what? I actually haven't. So, I've seen it plenty of times on TV and with some of my buddies, but it's going to be the first time I'm driving that track. So we'll see how quickly I can adapt to Imola.
All right. Well, best of luck. You got 2 weeks to practice, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That was Sam Mayorga winning in the overall race, and then winning in class, it was Federico Del Toro. I believe Joey's caught up with him.
Well, Federico, glad to have you here in the booth, and congratulations on kind of sweeping the weekend fastest race lap, pole position, and the race win.
Yes, thank you. It was a good day. So, too bad Sam jumped to the RSR, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying. I'm learning the GT4. It's fun.
And I think that you might have been gifted a little bit of a bigger gap, because I saw that Daniel behind you actually filled up the car another 5 or 6 seconds more on fuel. I have to ask you, did you adjust after that yellow flag, or did you just let crew chief do its thing?
No, nothing really. They went up on the fuel from, I think it was 40% to 60%. So I knew I could almost make the whole race on it. So I waited till they told me that I had 1 lap left.
Well, it ended up working out for you. As we just heard Joe say, Imola is up next. Are you familiar? Are you confident over there?
Yes, very.
Well, I look forward to seeing you put down another awesome performance, maybe even sweeping the class again. Federico, congratulations on that win. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Well, everybody that is behind me, my wife puts up with all my practices and everything. So, yeah, her and everybody else. Thank you.
That was Federico Del Toro claiming that GT4 class win here at Road Atlanta.
And it looks like we got second place here to talk to us. It was an adventure at the start for Michael Johnson. Michael, you had a little bit of contact in turn one, and then after the restart, it seemed like you had a close moment with, I think it was Chinichi. I'm trying to remember. Or no, it was Steele, actually, that looked like you almost
had it was Chinichi on turn one. He shot up the inside, went off the grass, came back to me. I had to avoid him, which caused me to lock up, and because the car in front of me stopped short, and then somebody somewhere got hit. I'm sure they'll find a way to blame me for it, because that's kind of what they do.
Well, I mean, did you consider your approach coming into this one a bit more aggressive, or was this just kind of how things played out?
No, I was planning on sitting back, honestly. I mean, after I couldn't get a good quali lap down, I was stuck in P5, I think. I should have been about a 15.5, I think, on my quali lap, but I never could get one down, so I decided I'm just going to sit back, chill, wait for things to happen. I mean, even like when I was coming up on Jad, I just sat there and waited for him to make a mistake. Ended up passing him in the pits, but I was like, yeah, it's okay. We'll just sit back here, wait, see what happens. And I had absolutely no intention of being aggressive. I was going to sit back, relax, and let the race come to me.
Well, and then partway through the race, you had Michael Bolton really giving you some hassle. Was it starting to feel a little Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader there?
Bolton's getting fast. He's learning well, and he's just good. He's been doing a couple of sessions here and there. We work together and work on things, and I think he was a lap down, but I was able to draft him for a bit, and then I think after I got around him, I said something over the radio, over the Discord, hey, can I get around on this one? Because I think Jad had started to open up a little bit, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let me see if I can get around when we were going down to turn 10. So he pulled to the left and let me by, and then I went and caught up with Jad.
Well, and you wound up with a second place. Congratulations. Like I said, a bit of a hectic one at times, but a well-earned podium.
Thank you very much. It was a fun race, and hopefully the next one is just as much fun.
We hope so as well. That was Michael Johnson, P2. And then third place went to BJ Fulton, who I believe was unfortunately the victim of that. So let's get his perspective with Joey.
Let's get the drama with BJ Fulton. Congrats on the podium, but what did you think about turn one?
I haven't looked at it in the replay yet, and I have no idea what happened. But I definitely felt something, and I was just happy to get out of there without too much damage, and happy the caution came out so I could get back into it.
So when you got put on that back foot, right? Yeah, you said happy to see that caution flag came out. Were you immediately thinking to kind of short pit, do that undercut?
Well, I immediately decided to pit at that time. I didn't know if I had any damage or not, but I decided to take the fast repair anyways since I was in last. And then I still had to pit later for fuel. I couldn't fill it all up there. And when I got stuck in a little bit of RSR traffic, I decided to take the pit early. And I think that allowed me to jump some positions.
And then really it was just kind of the meat and potatoes, laying down the lap after lap after lap. And then ultimately passing Dylan Scott there at the end. Were you expecting to have him make those mistakes?
Not really. Dylan's usually pretty solid, but I was happy to finish fourth in this race after all that happened. But Dylan had a little incident, went off a bit, and I was able to get around him.
Well, congrats on that third place finish, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks out there at Imola.
Thanks. Good to talk to you.
That was BJ Fulton driving that number 82, rounding out your podium here in the RSRs.
which is going to wrap up our interviews for tonight. So before we go, we want to give another big thank you to our sponsors, Porsche, there is no substitute, and Top Gun MG, helping financial advisors be the best of the best. Big thanks to the team today, Joey, Christian, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. Next time, like we keep saying, it's off to Imola, going overseas for Monday, February 24th at 10 p.m. Eastern on round 4. But we've got more series coming up this week, including the Drivers Club at Road Atlanta going off to Sebring. And then be sure to check out all of our other broadcasts that we have listed here. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.